This is the War Crimes stream. War Crimes playthrough. So, just to get it out of the way before we start, you know, same thing as when we did our Hag playthrough, right? Story spoilers are on the table. I've done a playthrough of Cerulean Crescent before, and, you know, I know the story now. We're going to be doing, you know, unit reviews and stuff, and some of those unit reviews do get impacted by the story. I just don't want to stifle conversation. I feel like most people who are, you know, here to watch a Zero Growth's playthrough have probably played the game to some extent, so this is, you know, your one and only warning. Well, not only, I'll you know, have it pinned at the start of every stream probably, when I remember. But if you care about the story, if you want to experience the story for yourself without spoilers, consider leaving, watching something else, coming back later, you know? I never want to tell people, like, don't watch my stream or whatever, but you know, it's gonna have spoilers. If you care about the story, I didn't care for the story personally, but I'm just one person, and you might feel differently, and I honestly think, you know, going in with it unspoiled is probably the best way to you know, experience it. So that's the warning, that's the spoiler warning. Challenge run time. Oops, hold on, my controller's acting up. There we go. Okay. So we're doing Zero Growths. We're doing Zero Growths. I'm gonna do, so first off, I guess I'll explain the Zero Growths rules that I'm doing, because with Hag, I sort of had rules as well, where I gave, in Hag and White, I gave myself save states every 4 turns as the form of checkpoint, because that game doesn't have save points. This game also doesn't have save points. However, it does have, I don't think it's actually listed in options, I think it's just default. It's got basically infinite turn wheel. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna use the turn wheel, but I'm gonna give myself a limitation per map. We'll start out with 5 per map. That should be more than enough for the whole campaign. But if we get to the later maps and the larger maps, I might just do the thing that 3 Houses does, where it increases it each map, right? So, you know, that's just sort of putting that out there. The other thing is that I am far less familiar with this game than I am with Hag and White and TMGC, and Call of the Armor, and all the other games that I've done Zero Growth stuff, right? So, I'm probably gonna need help when it comes to secrets and stuff. So, basically, you know, backseating is turned on, kind of. Basically, like, tell me about secrets if I need them, or, like, if I ask questions or whatever. Can you show the colors again? Oh, yeah, sure. Here's what we got. 1, 2, 3, 4. But yeah, there will be a lot of debates. Oh, there will almost certainly be debates. And, you know, we'll sort of come to conclusions together. And I think that unit reviews are also going to be a kind of collaborative process. I have not used every single unit, so I will probably have some bad takes. Just, you know, putting that out there. And there will probably be some debates in the collaborative unit review process. But that's kind of, you know, I guess part of the fun of it. With a cast this diverse and unique, where everyone has not just one gimmick, but everyone has multiple gimmicks, it becomes, it's a lot, right? It's a lot to evaluate. But anyway, sort of establishing things there. Let's dive in, because we have to do 6 unit reviews. 6 to start out. And we'll do Ellerie first. She is the lord of this game. Or, you know, I guess the first lord. Spoilers. I told you there'd be spoilers. but she is a supplier. This is an infantry lance plus staff class. And she instantly starts out with C rank staves, which is fairly useful. You know, staffing is always helpful. Being a free deploy with staffers, or being a free deploy who is a staffer, is nice. You know, sort of Micaiah pilled if Micaiah had a staffer at the beginning. Or Celica kind of like that too. When she, like, you know, I like it when a lord has healing because it means in 0% they're still useful. But also outside of 0%, I think they can be quite useful. Ellerie also has an A support. Supports are fixed in this game. You don't gain support ranks by getting, like, support combos. So having an A support with Wisp, and Wisp is a really, really good, character. I would say, you know, her biggest issue is availability. Like, she's only in half of the game, which is why people, you know, don't necessarily rank her high in terms of that. But once she shows up, having an A support with Ellerie, you know, helps out Wisp. And Ellerie, of course, can access the supply. She has a, you know, she's not got the greatest combat stats. If you take a look, you know, 9 strength, 7 speed, and then 45-35 on the growths. Defensively, she's even worse off. 6 and 4 for her defense and res, and 30 and 20 for the growths. But, you know, it's not terrible. And her luck is like her phenomenal stat. 10 base, 50% growth, and a weapon that uses the luck to add additional damage. It also doubles weapon triangle, and in this game, weapon triangle is 3 might. I believe it's 3 might and 20 hit or something ridiculous. I have to double check that, because weapon triangle 30 hit and avoid, and then it's 3 might, right? So weapon triangle is already cracked. Doubling weapon triangle bonuses, as long as you're at advantage, is very fucking strong. And this is an auto repair, so she gets to use it 3 times every map. So some pretty strong qualities. But as chat has said, I've been dancing around the really nice thing about Ellerie, and that is, of course, the 2 leadership stars. No. Ellerie's personal skill, lead by example. It is a 4-way dance. Kind of, because it's triggered by killing, so you usually, if you're killing at 1 range, you usually only dance 3 people. But you can, like, chuck a javelin or harpoon if you really want to dance 4 people. Even just refreshing 3 people is really fucking strong. And even though Ellerie's combat stats are not phenomenal, she can manage to get kills with Fenian. Pretty reliably. I imagine even in 0 growth, she's going to be getting kills with Fenian. Just because it's a good fucking weapon, right? So being able to auto-refresh, you know, even just doing it to 2 people, if you can't get a full triangle, is so nice. It is probably the best sort of, like, movement refresher skill that, because everyone in the cast, or almost everyone, has some sort of, like, move again skill. And Ellorie's doesn't affect her, but it affects others. Although she can make it affect her, because the Seahawk flag, which is a lance you get about 1/3 of the way in the game, is a infinite durability lance that gives Gale Force. So one of the, like, sort of pro gamer plays is have Ellerie Gale Force herself while also refreshing 3 other people, and you've suddenly just got, like, a phenomenal fighting force. You can only do it once per turn, so you can't, like, you know, chain the Seahawk flag into infinite Gale Forces or whatever. All these movement skills are once per turn, and some of them override each other. But for the most part, it's, you know, it's still very, very fucking strong. I would say Ellerie is perfectly usable in the late game because of luck stacking Fortune Cookie. Yeah, the fact that luck is the stat she cares about most is also really nice, because it's a stat that most other characters don't care about. Luck tends to be looked at as one of the lowest value stats in Fire Emblem. It is important to, like, avoid crits and stuff, but hey, on the Lord, like, hey, Iron Man's safe, right? She doesn't get crit. She's never getting crit. But it also means she gets, like, free access to Fortune Cookies. Ellerie does also have a number of plot events that can help her out. Promotions in this game are all story-based. Think of it like Final Fantasy 1, where you get an item and it gets everyone the class change, right? With like, I think 2 exceptions, because it's Oriana and Tower have their own promotions, but otherwise everyone promotes, well, the trainees, but that's also different. Most people promote with pay raise. It very much reminds me of the FF1 class change, where it's like just partway through the game, everyone promotes. And Ellerie is the first one to do that. She gets a horse, which is nice. Like, then she's a horse staffer with Fenyan, and horsing also helps her to dance people more easily with lead by example. There is a late game event where she can buy like spirits to possess herself with, and they affect her stats in all sort of wonky ways. And you can use that to like cap her magic, which probably isn't capping on its own. There's some cool stuff you can do with it. I don't know all of it. But you know, there's stuff you can do. Harpoon is better than magic. You break a one-use harpoon and then her weapon gets swapped. Yeah, you can do the abuse stuff like that. For anyone who isn't aware, because skill system is imperfect, it just looks at the weapon at the top of your inventory after combat. So you can like do breaking stuff to get extra scale force, but like, I don't really see the need to get into the nuances with like glitch exploit stuff. Ellerie is already phenomenal without exploiting the systems, right? Like, just playing her as she was intended, she not only is super strong at base in a couple of different ways, but she also just has a lot of flexibility. And I'll also say convoy access on a staffer is, like, the fact that I haven't even mentioned convoy access on a staffer just sort of shows how much else Ellerie has going on, because basically it gives her infinite inventory, and a staffer with infinite inventory is always nice. Like, the only other Lord Staffers we have is, well, Celica, not really, because they're not in a convoy, but then Micaiah in a game where there's no convoy access. Being able to just reach into the convoy and grab, like, okay, this is a situation where I need warp. This is a situation where I need barrier. This is a situation where I need any number of other... There's so many wacky staffs in this game. It's a very strong trait, and it's only like 3rd or 4th on the list of everything Ellerie has going for her. And leadership stars is good, right? Like, and customizability with the spirit stuff. There's just so many things you can do. Shrine Maiden Corrin. You can do Shrine Maiden Corrin, that is true. But there's fewer staffs. Staffing's not very good in Fates. Chat, who are we going with next? Lindros. Lindros is on the thumbnail. So we can do Lindros. Lindros is a unit that a lot of people really like. I can see why too. So his movement skill, he has lunge, right? Lunge is good. Lunge is, you know, it's the, lunge is, you know, you attack an enemy, you swap spaces with them. Synergistic with Ellerie, because you can lunge someone into a position that lets Ellerie lead by example, or you can lunge Lindros into a position where he gets led by example as well. There's some really cool stuff you can do with that in terms of lunge. He's also just got very good combat stats. You know, bad bulk, 10% defense with 2 defense growth, and only 23 base HP with 70 HP growth. But that's a mage for you, right? Like, not gonna complain that a mage is frail. That's like complaining that like an armor knight is slow, right? He's a glass cannon, 65% magic growth and 35% speed. He's usually not doubling stuff, but he can do big damage, which is nice. Anima's a good weapon type. There's a lot of interesting and complex anima tomes, including guidance, which is his personal. It is a 3 to 10 range infinite refresh. You might notice that this synergizes very well with lunge. The reason for that is, you know, you just lunge halfway across the battlefield. This allows Lindros to keep pace with cavalry units, because generally mounted units are going to have worse stats than infantry. And the trade-off is, you know, infantry have trouble keeping up. They need to be rescue dropped or, you know, shoved or any number of other things to help move them around. Lindros, he can keep up. He can just lunge an enemy 10 tiles away, and he keeps pace with the cavalry. And yet he still manages to have the sort of the infantry favoritism in terms of stats. It's just like the rewarp staff. Imagine rewarp staff with 3 uses per map. You know, we're playing under 3 houses warp rules at this point. He also, it gale forces him, right? So it's better than rewarp, because rewarp, you don't get an action afterwards. Guidance gale forces him. It doesn't deal any damage. You know, it's not just a 0 might. He won't deal 13 with it. I can demonstrate, like, he should be dealing damage to this pirate, but it is locked to 0 damage, right? So it is just a movement tool, but it is probably the best movement tool in the game. Like, there's a couple of others in contention with it, but I think it's probably the best one. Is it a full action or a stationary action? No, you get a full action. You get a full action. You can move again. It's Gale Force. So it's just really fucking strong. Other than that, you know, he's just a mage, right? He's a mage with mage combat who manages to keep up with the cavalry. Not much else to say about that. I do find him to be a bit slow. But like, that's a problem most of the mages have. I compared it to 3 houses earlier, and that's a 3 houses mage problem. So that is, there's like one who's kind of the exception to the rule, and that's sort of her gimmick. But yeah, Lindros really good. Worth noting, Sanctuary, starts in Lindros' inventory, and he's a good user of it, because he's otherwise pretty frail, and it helps with his bulk. However, you can give it to anyone else. So in 0 growths, it's gonna get passed around like a fucking blunt. And even in a growths playthrough, right? You can give it to people other than Lindros if someone else needs it. No, it's nice. It's a nice thing. Dicer of Dan. Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's a ton of good options for... There's a ton of good options for anima. Dicers of Dan, that's the Brave Tome, right? Which, you know, I guess that kind of makes up for not doubling. You know, but now you're not quadding, right? 3 houses mages are bad. They are. Lindros isn't, though. Lindros isn't. I believe a couple of people in chat said he's S tier. Which I don't really know what the tier list for this game is. There's probably not going to be one at the end of the unit reviews, because the units are so ridiculous. That just evaluating them all against each other becomes like a mess. Because everyone's a little bit crazy. We've gone over 2 units so far, and we have Mr. 10 range lunge Gale Force and Mrs. I kill people to refresh my allies. And it only gets cooler from here, because I mentioned that guidance is probably the best movement tool in the game. But so Mince gives it a run for his money. He has the swarp command, which allows him to basically swap through warp range. For him, currently it's at 5, but he actually has a decent magic growth. This is a magical armor knight. So armors with low move, no think, just teleport. Now, as a swarper, right, you do need to have an ally up there, which means that it's more limited. You know, guidance, the reason I think guidance is better is you can lunge to where an enemy is, and that always gives you more flexibility than using swarp to where an ally is. Additionally, swarp, while you can use it as many times as you want, it is in action. It doesn't gale force you in the way that guidance does. But Mince does have something that helps him overcome this flaw, and that is at the end of chapter 1, at the end of this chapter we're in right now, he's going to get the cooking pot, which is a 1/2 range axe, 5 durability, but it's yellow, so it, you know, refreshes every map. And when the cooking pot is equipped, he gains a defense bonus. I think it's +5 defense. And any swarping uses his first durability or uses the durability of the cooking pot and gale forces Mince. So what he can do is he can equip the cooking pot, swarp someone, get an extra action, and now continue to move forward, or move backwards, or do whatever. One thing that is worth noting is that Lindros and Mince actually work really well together. I think Luna picked up on it immediately, but a strategy you can do is have Lindros lunge an enemy, but now he's behind enemy lines, he's got low defense. Even with Sanctuary, he's not, you know, out for the best situation. Mince can swarp himself to the front lines. He is bulky. He has 10 defense with a 50% growth, 105% HP growth. He can take on those enemies. And so Lindros can line up a spot for Mince to swarp to, and then do it again the next turn. And the two of them can sort of advance forward that way. Why not just rescue staff Lindros at that point? Well, that moves you backwards. The point of doing this is to get your army going forward, get the infantry up in the situation where they're going to be in the front lines. If you rescue him backwards, first off, rescue has limited durability, but you're also not making forward progress. You know, it's something you can do, but I think they work much better together because neither of them are consuming a limited resource and both of them are moving forwards. You know, Lindros lunges forward, then he gets a free action, he attacks someone on the front lines, then Mince swarps himself, brings Lindros to safety, and then he gets an action on the front lines as well, and on enemy phase, he can actually stand up to the punishment, and now you're ready to do it all over again, have Lindros lunge forward next turn. And so the two of them, they do make, even though Lindros' buddy in the story is Pomelo, I think gameplay-wise, Mince and Lindros work really well together in terms of just getting that infantry stats on the front line, powering each other up. Funny thing about Swarp is people legit forget it's in 3 houses. Yeah, the Fetters of Domri, right? That's what it's called. It's the item that Yuri has, I think. I might be wrong about that. It's not called Swarp in there, but it is, it's kind of lame, because, like, Trickster gets it, right? No, Fetters is Kanto, isn't it? Foul play. Yeah, Trickster gets it. Foul play. Yeah. It's the Trickster Mastery. It's just like, in a game with infinite warp, it's just not useful. But this is not a game with infinite warp, right? Although, we do get an infinite range warp staff. Hey, Ellerie, you don't have a good magic stat. Warp is infinite range anyway. We did kind of talk about, I did kind of hint at Pomelo, because he's sort of Lindros' buddy in the story. So I guess we could talk about him. Oh, Mince has secret events? Oh yeah, what are his other secret events? I guess, no, we're not quite done with Mince, are we? We're not, because as a physical and magical fighter, like, hybrid stuff is good. He gets, like, oh yeah, he has bows. Bow access is always nice. Like, shooting down flyers is really nice. He gets access to, like, the flaming bow with his magic, and then I guess there's secret events I'm forgetting about. What are his secret events, Sindre? Sun God for bow range +1 and point blank. Sun God? You get bow buffs from killing the bow armor boss in the late game. Damn, I didn't even know that. See, this is what I mean, that we have to collaborate on these unit reviews, because y'all know stuff that I don't. I'm not as familiar with all the secrets in this game. So is the Sun God also another thing for Mince? Like, he can technically use axes, but I find that he's better at just using bows. Bow range +1 and point blank for killing the bow armor. And you get provoke from doing the chicken gaiden. Oh right, you do get provoke from the chicken gaiden. I forgot about that. I got that in my first playthrough. Yeah, an armor with provoke and, like, good defensive growths. I mean, he gets shredded by mages, but you know who doesn't. Again, the dynamic duo. But yeah, provoke. I forgot about fucking provoke. It comes very late, so we won't make use of it in this, but provoke in skill system it forces enemies to attack you, and having that on someone who is super bulky makes the late game a lot easier. It made it so that you can get more aggressive by being like, you know that the enemy is always going to attack one specific unit. Does Provoke work better in GBA hacks? Yes. Provoke is, I think, the strongest skill in skill system. At least the strongest one used like normally, right? Because controlling the enemy AI and forcing them to do what you want is just so powerful. He has a solid speed growth. Yeah, 50% or 35%. He is, well, isn't that the same as Lindros? So not really. He's not gonna double stuff. Like, they're both kind of slow. They're both kind of slow. I guess that it's probably enough that neither of them gets doubled, which for Lindros makes, again, Sanctuary very good. And in Mince's case, is just like, you know, it's gravy on top of already being super bulky. And then, like, Axes is nice. I think in the early game, like, having the option to enemy phase at one range is good. But later on, I really do think just he's better as a bow unit. You get 1-2 range bows as well in the magical bows. I usually give him the first wine so he can graduate out of coin flip mode. That's a growth booster, right? The wine? Yeah. That is, I guess, the big downside is he's a little bit Phobos pilled with 50% in everything. But as long as you, like, you know, maintain as a bulky unit, like as an enemy phase unit, right? You have more opportunities to gain experience and sort of make up for the coin flips. So I'm very high on Mince. I think that Mince and Lindros are both in that sweet spot where you get the upside of infantry skills, but they have a powerful enough, or infantry stats, but they have a powerful enough movement skill that they do not feel as hindered by being infantry. That applies to Lindros more than Mince, but I do think it still applies to Mince, since he, you know, he has the Swarp. As long as his magic keeps going up, he will remain on the front lines. Whereas with Lindros, like, he's just always able to get there. Because 10 range swarm, or 10 range lunge. Like, are you kidding me? Lindros does the same thing with Wide Water or Rescue or other staffing. What's Wide Water again? Axe rank for the Xeon. Yeah, oh, that's the other thing. That's the nice thing about axes, is there is an axe that'll boost his magic and functionally just gives him more swarp range. Although you can't have that equipped at the same time as the pot, so it becomes a little bit like of a juggle, like which one would you prefer? But the pot's nice for tanking too. Oh yeah, the +8 magic equip. Right. Yeah. How is axe accuracy? Pretty good, 90. And remember, weapon triangle's 30. So typically I don't think there's a bad weapon type. I think you just don't want to be at disadvantage, right? Just to give you the weapon layouts. But because weapon triangle is so extreme, I do think that you want to maintain weapon triangle advantage. I wouldn't say that like lances, swords, or axes are bad in the way that I would in a lot of vanilla Fire Emblems. Just because of how important weapon triangle is. Like, if you are at weapon triangle advantage, you're almost always going to hit, right? Like, look, there's 100 versus 57. That's how impactful weapon triangle is. It's a big deal. It's a very big deal. And it means that maintaining a healthy balance of each member of the weapon triangle on your team is important. And hey, we talked about a Lancer. We've talked about an Axer. Technically an Axer. Let's talk about a sword unit. The only sword unit we have to start the game is Oriana. She's a dancer. And you might expect, you know, dancers are traditionally very, very good because refreshing is so strong, right? But their combat tends to not be great. And it doesn't matter because you should be clicking dance with them every single turn. And I would say that is true to an extent with Oriana. You should be clicking dance with her every single turn, but her combat's not shit. Look at this combat. 17 base speed, 11 strength, 13 magic, and good growths. Not great growths. Her magic growth is definitely better, but she actually has the combination of speed and magic in a way that other units lack. You know, usually the magic units are either fast but low magic or slow but high magic, right? Oriana gets both as her privilege, but she has to use magical swords to do it. Now, with the wind sword, she gets even more speed. I forgot about that shit. So yeah, 22 functionally. Leadership star as well, which is always nice. She later becomes the second lord. There's a party split in part 3, or act 3, right? And Oriana becomes the lord of the army of everyone who abandoned Ellerie. Now, you might think, okay, her combat's good, but it can never be as good as dancing. And again, that's true, but she doesn't have to choose. When Oriana dances, she also gale forces herself. So Oriana should dance every single turn because she still gets to do combat even after dancing. So it's good. It's fucking good. It's kind of ridiculous, and you might think, like, how on earth could you make a dancer better than that? Well, her promotion gives her fucking flying. She gets a Pegasus on promotion. Her promotion is later than everyone else. I believe it's like 2 chapters later, because you get the pay raise, but her promotion only comes when you get a Pegasus. You rescue the Pegasus from the jail. And I believe it's also linked to a side objective that you can fail. Squishy, oh yeah, 4 defense and like no growths, and no res either. If Oriana is defeated before the split, she's forced to become a sword master. I saw the sword master sprites in Builder. I didn't know what that was for. That's interesting. I imagine that even in 0 growths, that's not worth it, right? Like, her stats can't possibly be worth it if she can't dance. Flying dancer, I'm dying. Yeah! Flying dancer who has good combat and gets to use it. Like, you know, this is I mean, Luna, if you think a flying dancer is good, you know, Azura can reclass into Kinshi Knight if you grind her up to level 36. But yeah, Oriana's very fucking good. No sword master with the dance. Oh, she has the dance skill. Huh. Maybe it's worth killing her off. I guess we'll see when we get there. That's interesting though. So she can dance as a sword master, but she's not flying. That's interesting. I did not know that. See, this is where the collaborative part comes in. Chat is on screen. You're educating me, teaching me about these things. But yeah, that's interesting. That is interesting. She also has an A support with Kranya. Kranya is one of the game's trainee units. Probably the best of them because she has a really strong personal weapon and she gets lance access for the Seahawk flag, which is the Gale Force lance. Seahawk flag is why lances are probably the best weapon. But again, you want a balance of all weapons because the triangle is so important. It's fun to learn new things with CC being pretty dense. There's so much on it, like, and that's, again, disclaimer, I'm gonna miss stuff, I'm gonna get stuff wrong. So if I do, you know, correct me in the comments or in chat if you're in live stream, because this will eventually be a compilation. Yeah, we've talked about this square of units. I guess we can go, there's not much more to say about Oriana, right? So let's talk about Pomelo. Pomelo is, unfortunately, probably the weakest of the starting characters. His best trait is arguably the B support with Lindros, because he's just powering up someone better than him. But he's also not bad. He's just sort of the first one to get benched. He's a pirate. You know, these are pirate stats. He's truly a unit in the cast of CC. Yeah, he has pirate stats and pirate growths, right? Like, this is kind of what you expect from a pilot and berserker. But he does have a couple of interesting skill options, right? Land boat allows him to transform into a boat. And while a boat, he can still use his axes. He doesn't stop getting axe access. He still has axe access, but he also gets cannon access. Cannon access is a 5 range weapon, well, 3 to 5 range, and not only does it, hit the enemy far away, but it also has splash damage. Free siege weapon is bad, high power attack. I mean, he has strong attack. But I do think the powder blast is good. I don't think it's bad. It's not like as far ranged as something like Guidance or Ballistas and FE11, but just having the extra range is nice, and the splash damage is good. And if I can demonstrate, he also has a skill called Drop Bear, or Drop Attack. Basically, for every tile that he moves before exiting, he boosts both his offense and defense by 1. So the idea is to switch between boat mode and pirate mode as often as you can, because you go into boat mode to use the powder blast, and then next turn you drop attack, get a damage and defense boost. And that can end up being like a pretty significant boost. He has 8 move as a tank, so you can get plus 8 damage, minus 8 damage, right? It's very useful in 0%. I imagine it is, because, it's a pretty big damage boost. Oh yeah, with a brave weapon, it's 16. It's 8 damage at best. 8's a big number in Fire Emblem. If you had a consumable item that said gain 8 strength, that would be a very fucking good item, right? 8 is a big damage stack, even in CC. And it's one that you get for functionally free every other turn, as long as you're careful about positioning. So I do think Pomelo is the weakest of the starting group. He's sort of, iconic for being the first one benched pretty frequently, but I wouldn't sleep on him. How does drop attack work? Only 1 turn with a move. Yeah, it's only 1 turn, so it caps out at your movement stat, but like 8 damage is a lot. I'm underwhelmed by him. Yeah, I mean, I am too. I think that, I'm not trying to gas him up as some sort of like secret god tier unit that nobody else knows is actually broken. Like, I do think there's a reason that he's often the first one ditched. It's partially because he's, more boring than the others. It's partially because I do think he's the weakest of them. And also, he's kind of the most annoying to use. The ride capabilities kind of fuck with your head in terms of what commands you're supposed to click, and they make it hard to check the battle forecast. So that is also a factor on him getting dropped, I think. He's still the weakest of this lot, but he has a lot of options. Yeah, being the weakest unit in a group that contains fucking Ellerie and Oriana, and Lindros, Mince, and Tower, like, these are some of the 5 best units in the game. Being weaker than them is not the worst thing in the world. But speaking of Tower, right? Arjagan. Speaking of Arjagan Tower, he's a war monk. I believe this is technically a promoted class, so his experience gain is going to be quite slow, but he has staff access, and he gets like unpromoted staff experience, so that sort of helps him keep up with his experience curve. His growths are also very good. They're kind of lopsided. 75% strength is pretty ridiculous, and 200 HP alongside 55% defense and 60% resistance. Like, these are some of the stats of all time. Also worth noting that, like, promoted units don't actually gain that much less experience than unpromoted units. I think it's a difference of like 3 or 5 levels. The main thing is that, as a level 10 promoted unit, as compared to level 1 unpromoted units, like, that is a significant level difference, basically. Oriana also gonna be a higher level, but Tower is the one it's most noticeable on, but there's a workaround in using staffing. A rank in both axes and staves too means he can use basically everything he wants. And that includes the Man Splitter, which is basically his Silver Axe equivalent, a 25 might weapon. 25 might. Kind of ridiculous. Kind of ridiculous. Of course, this is all offense, no defense, so he loses 8 defense for equipping it. And that does make him pretty fucking frail when using it, but it's a nice emergency option. You can trade equip it off him if you want to. This will kill basically everything. And it's not going to miss because Tower is almost always at weapon triangle advantage. Any adjacent foes are treated as if they are at weapon triangle disadvantage, no matter what. And this means at one range, Tower is always at weapon triangle advantage. However, he's also applies it for other people. So let's say, you know, Tower stands right here. Suddenly, Ellerie is at weapon triangle advantage against this axe user, right? So you can use it as a skill that helps Tower, but you can also use it as a skill that helps other characters. And that's not even his only skill. He also has stun. This allows him to just stun someone for one turn, and it's mercy because he's a, because he's a Jagan. He can set up a kill for someone or just freeze a problematic enemy. It works as both the Jagan role and just as a powerful unit elimination skill. If you've got a bunch of scary foes and you can't kill them all, you can just stop a target from doing anything. Like, it's basically a delay. Heartseeker who? Heartseeker who, yeah. Tower does also get a promotion. Despite being a promoted unit, he gets another promotion. It's a story promotion. It gives him like plus 10 strength. Oh, plus 10 HP and strength. Someone put it in chat. Plus 10 HP and strength, plus 5 magic defense and res. Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous on a unit who already has good growths, right? And it gives him dark magic access, which dark magic is an interesting defensive toolkit. You know, Nosferatu. There's a plus defense one, like you equip it and it boosts your defense. So it makes him into a bit of a tank. Does weapon triangle only apply to weapons on the triangle? No, it applies to everything. Everything. But there's a magic triangle in this too. So light, magic, and anima. But it literally applies to everything. Like, Lindra's also gets triangle advantage if, you know, Tower's here, right? Thunder over axes, thunder over lances, you can see. So it's pretty ridiculous. But yeah, Tower's the Jagan. And like all good ROM hack Jagans, he will not fall off. He will not fall off. Am I forgetting anything about Tower? He's good. He's really good, right? But I feel like he's a unit who could potentially have like secret events that I'm just not aware of. The Tower will not be toppled. Archer Gaming. He gets Nos or Ruin for free. Yeah, you can choose. I mean, that's like, but anyone can use them, right? You know, that's like, it's just like a story thing he can get given. He can choose between 2 tomes. But I think that's everything, yeah. I like Stunned, it's not as good as the Freeze Staff. I mean, again, it's a free action. It doesn't consume your Freeze Staff. And I think that's something, you know, to not be shrugged off. But also, you know, the fact it deals damage and helps with mercy, I think it's good for if you're trying to train up. Like, especially Gecko in the early game really appreciates stun. But anyone you're trying to train up likes it, right? I personally prefer Bravely 1 to Bravely 2, but anything's valid, you know? With how gimmickly kits are in this game, it wouldn't be weird if Tower couldn't move diagonally. Technically, nobody moves diagonally. They all move in, like, knight patterns where they go zigzaggy. Can lunge double if you have the speed? I don't think it can, but I might be wrong. That's a question for chat. Fenyon! It can never double. Damn, Lindro's bad. Lindro's bad. He can never double with lunge. I saw the 2 with default in their name on Steam sale. Yeah, so Bravely Second is the sequel to Bravely Default that is, like, actually a sequel. And Bravely Default 2 is... It's like Fire Emblem and Final Fantasy, where... They're, you know, it just the same series, but they're sort of like a, anthology. Lindros bad. This is gonna be our Marcia bad, Rolf good moment for this run, isn't it? Everyone's just gonna say Lindros sucks now. The word is anthology. Oh, did I say something different? I'm sorry. I meant anthology. That's my bad. Bravely Default and Default 2 are connected by concept alone. They have a lot of the same mechanics. And, like, there's like, the meta stuff, too. Like, they're both games whose stories deals with meta things. Oriana Grande. Stab. Stab. Chat is super delayed. Oh, do we have a big delay on chat? According to my settings, it's low latency, so there shouldn't be a delay. I enjoyed Octopath. I'm tried Bravely. I think Bravely is better than Octopath, but they're made by the same team. And they have very similar design philosophies. It's just, you know, executed slightly differently. It's like 2 seconds for me, which is fine. Yeah, I have it. It should be set to about 5 to 10 seconds. It's like 5 to 8 seconds for me. Yeah, okay. I got scared that it was more extreme. Maybe your it's possible that your stream is behind or something? It might be a regional difference. It could be. It could be internet regional stuff. Actually, that reminds me to check to make sure I've disconnected by VPN, because that'll slow stuff down. Okay, we'll do this. Powder Blast you. Do this. Blank VPN placement when. I mean, I'm not sponsored. I also think, like, I'm definitely not a big enough YouTuber to get sponsored by, like, a VPN, you know? Alright, so we will do Lindros. Okay. Mince. Oh, he's just shy here. How's Mince on the mage? Okay, Mince can kill the mage. Lindros can kill the Myrmidon. And then Pomelo will heal himself on the ley line. So for anyone who hasn't played, for anyone who has not played CC, first off, you should. You know, you're doing yourself a disservice by not. But the little blue glowing fire, right? That is a ley line. And activating the ley line gives you a full heal, a +10 power boost, and Gale Force. So it's pretty good. Are there any other FE hacks you have on your eye on right now? At the moment, not really. Mostly I've just sort of been out of touch with the FE hacking community. I do want to check out, I think it's called, like, Floor. It's like an MMO game, right? It's by the person who made Dye's Emblem. Dragon Veins got hands now, right? The Leaf event just started, which is a bunch of one-chapter hacks. So I'm interested in looking at those. Server 72, thank you. I knew it was a number. I thought it was Tower. For some reason, I was thinking Tower 27. I guess because of Tower CC. But yeah, I haven't really, been looking at things that much. Sigma game design. What's Sigma game design? Also, check out Ellerie's staff animations. She pulls a potion out of her backpack. It's so good. Right, Sigma Raven. Sorry. I was thinking like Sigma, like Alpha, Beta, Sigma males, like that sort of thing. So I thought you were saying like, oh, that game design is so Sigma. Gecko is never good. Oh shit, I got Mince killed, didn't I? Ooh-dee-doo-dee-doo. And Mince goes down with a bang! So that's our first turn wheel. I think what we do basically is the exact same thing, but we don't have Mince go forward. Gecko is a peak unit. I mean, she's the training project, right? Like, she's the villager, the Mozu, the Donald, you know? If you want to train someone up, she's who you train up because she starts out earliest as the underleveled little unit. So it just depends on your preferences in terms of like what you prefer from Fire Emblem units. Trainee, I love trainees. She has Gale Force too, which like even in a game where there's tons of other move again skills, Gale Force is nice to have just like for free. And she is supposed to be like another fast magic sword user similar to Oriana. In my playthrough she got speed screwed, but you know. It happens. Trainee units are a favorite of mine. Yeah, and like, you know, if you don't like trainees, you're not gonna like her. And if you like trainees, you'll like her. She's a perfectly serviceable trainee if that's what you're in the market for, right? Gecko doesn't have good stats when trained. Well, that's categorically untrue. She has good speed, strength, and magic growths. Like, she's, again, one of those rare can use both magic and be fast characters. Do we want to... Yeah, let's... Oh, crap, I can't. Alright, well, we'll just do this. I wanted to refresh both Tower and Oriana. Free promos are nice. Oh, yeah, I mean, we'll talk about it when we get to her. But the way the trainees work is pretty cool in terms of, the way their promotions work. Break the wall and check the tile for a steel blade. Oh, really? I didn't know that. $14 attack. Oh, but he's tricky. He's a tricky dicky. Lindros Gaming! Funny enough, CSE is the second half I've seen that gave Gale Force to a trainee. I think Gale Force trainee is a good design. Because Gale Force tends to be such a strong skill that having it on the unit that requests, you know, that requires training helps to sort of even that out, right? I don't think Steel Blade is the most exciting item, but hey, you can sell it. Yeah, I mean, also for us, right, in Zero Growths, we're gonna want to use higher might weapons. Are you sure there's a steel blade on this tile? Maybe I have to hit wait. Oh, visit! It's visit! Thank you. That's interesting. Okay. So send fireball to supply. And now here comes the get the fuck out of here reinforcements. They're not even that scary, but they are meant to scare you away. They don't have droppables, right? Yeah, just thunder, iron sword. Yeah. I think Rahesi is the only unit I ever gave blades to, but it's nice that she has a niche. Not being able to double sucks, that is true. But again, you know, in zero growths, we're often going to be unable to double. If I remember in 1.0, those are actually a scary group of GTFO units in terms of stats. That wouldn't surprise me. From my understanding, 1.0 was a lot more, rushing you, I guess would be the word for it. And people really didn't like that, which I understand. You know, people don't like it when you have to get the heck out, right? There's sort of that's one of the problems people tend to have with Four Kings, but I personally like it when it's reasonable. I think that you can't drop the line to go too far, and that's sort of going to be a personal, from person to person as to when that happens. And I can understand, like, if you're trying to make people not think that the game's gonna be only for LTCers, dropping the turn 1 ones is definitely good. The maps are built tightly enough that the timer basically never mattered. Yeah, that's one of the options, right? So something I didn't talk about is after turn 17, you stop gaining experience. And one of the options is to turn that off, right? Because people really didn't like that. It used to be like turn 17 or turn 13 as well. But it's been moved backwards to 17, and that is largely just a it feels better thing, because with the movement tools you have, maps are going to be over before turn 17 anyway. There's a lot of them that literally cannot last until turn 17 or turn 13. Some are like defend for 12 turns, right? So a lot of people, they'd be like, you know, that sucks, you know, I can't grind or whatever. But realistically, like, I had plenty of maps where I killed everyone on the map and it was like turn 12. So it basically prevents you from, like, having Ellerie and Tower grind each other up with staffs or something. But even then, like, you need to get damaged for it to do anything, right? So I don't know. I think it very much is one of those things where it feels bad to read it, but playing through it, if you were not told, you would never notice. What do I do when I can't spend 500 turns grinding? I'm sure you'll survive, Luna. I'm sure you'll survive. If you can't grind in 12 turns, that's a skill issue. Efficient grinding. Isn't that the SOV thing? The SOV LTC does grinding, but they do efficient grinding is what they call it. And it's like, basically they grind for a number of turns that saves future turns or something. Speedruns do it too. The Bravely Default speedrun has grinding routed into it, which is funny. Anyway, we just got a new weapon. And we killed it. System error, initiate report bullshit. Got the broken sword. Good riddance. Time losses rock. Chickson might be useful this run. Chickson bad. Chickson seemed very bad, but I imagine almost every character will be getting some use.